Be careful who you start dating, because some people aren't looking for love. They're looking for help. Now, I've used that quote many times over the years, and some people take issue with it because they say, well, aren't we supposed to be helping each other? What's the problem? Shouldn't we want help? Yes, we should. We should be pouring into each other. But when people are focused on finding help and not love, well, they're looking to take, not give. Because that's the difference. Love is about giving, pouring into each other. Whereas the person who wants to use you just wants to take from you. And so it's important that you as a woman start to differentiate between the two and start to recognize when you're dealing with a man who just wants to use you. Now, there's a lot of actions to pay attention to, but let's talk about some of the phrases that may be typical to the user. So here's the first one to be mindful of. And that phrase or that thing that he will say is, we don't need a title. Right? Of course, let me explain. So here's the thing. Let me say this real quick, because one thing you have to understand is that a man using you isn't simply always about sex, all right? Or just about money. He could be using you for companionship. He could be using you to pass time. He's not serious about you is what we're really getting at here. He's not trying to build a life with you and pour into you. As I said, he's really looking to take. And so I'm mentioning that real quick before I dive into this first point, because sometimes the man who is using you will behave like your boyfriend in the sense of he will do a lot of boyfriend, girlfriend things with you. But again, his actions and his words will show you that it's a very one-sided dynamic. So let's get back to the first point of, he will say, we don't need a title. So essentially you'll have these dynamics where, yes, he may be willing to do all this lovey-dovey stuff with you and spend time with you, but he doesn't essentially want to give you commitment. He does not want to be obligated to you, all right? Because that's essentially what the relationship does, an official relationship. It puts the man or puts the person in a position where there's a higher obligation, there are higher expectations, all right? And there is essentially a vow of, I am only with you and I will not entertain anyone else. And essentially by not putting any title on this, it gives him the freedom to do whatever the hell he wants. That basically is what it comes down to. Now, listen, I will say there have been some rare exceptions, and I want to stress the word rare exceptions, where I have seen men who did not want to put a title on things because they were traumatized, legit traumatized. Essentially, I had men who I coached that said, listen, every time they put a title on a relationship with a woman, things went downhill. All right. And so he just felt like it wasn't that he didn't like this woman. It wasn't that he didn't want to keep her in his life or pour into her. It's that he was afraid. He was afraid of being, having the same things that happened to him in the past. Now, here's the thing. Even though that is a legit concern for some men, once again, I remind you, still a rare scenario. It doesn't mean tolerate it and accept it, all right? Because if he's my client, I'm still going to tell him, like, listen, man, you got to heal from what happened. You can't let that linger on and not allow you to provide this woman with clarity and with the security that comes with her understanding what her position is here and what you guys are doing together. So I would never tell the man that it's okay. So I'm not going to tell you as a woman to accept it. You know what I'm saying? I just want you to be aware that it's not always a cop-out or a lie. But in most scenarios, and of course, when you're evaluating these things, you don't want to just evaluate it by itself. Because consider this, and we'll get more into it later. If he is legitimately just as my client was, traumatized by titles, then his other behaviors, actions, and words will be consistent with a man who does pour into you, who does give to you, but simply struggles with this one area. Whereas the man who is just feeding you nonsense and trying to play you by using that excuse, he will have consistency in his inconsistency. He will show you that he is a taker, not a giver with you. And that will be your cue to, okay, it's not just this isolated issue. It's the totality of what's going on here. But again, to get back to the point, typically the unwillingness to add a title is a sign of him being very non-committal. And typically it's like, I hate to use this word because it's going to hurt some of y'all, but you become a placeholder to him. He's just using you for now. It's like, yeah, I'll play this girlfriend, boyfriend role with you now, but I'm not trying to be locked into this, So no titles. And that's why, you'll have these scenarios, and I'll move on to number 2 in a second, but you have these scenarios where months later, sometimes years later, you'll raise an issue with him, and he's like, I didn't tell you I was your boyfriend. We're not together. Where'd you get that from? And to you, it's like, wait a minute. And I'm sorry if I'm laughing. For those of you that it does hurt, sometimes I just laugh. But the point is, to you, it's like, but we've been behaving like this whole time. What do you mean I'm not your girl? But he never told you that you were his girl. And so again, no title, very huge sign that the man's using you. All right. So now the second thing a man will say when he's using you is, it's my way or the highway. All right. Or any variation of that phrase. Now I need to make clear off the jump. Though again, those words alone don't mean he's a user, or any variation of that phrase alone does not mean he's a user. Because I do believe that there may be an instance where even you as a woman have to say, listen, I'm not going for that. And it's either we can agree to do things this way or we can't work together. Does that mean you're automatically a user? No. However, when it's the my way or the highway all the time, when everything has to be the way that he wants it, when he has no flexibility, no willingness to compromise, oh, hell no. Like this dude, yes, he's using you. End of story. This is a problem. And even if you somehow wanted to make the argument that he's not using you, he's trying to control you. Somehow this isn't healthy. All right. Because real relationships, successful relationships require a level of compromise. Period. There's no way around it. I've never sat down with a happy couple that never had a moment of compromise. So when he shows no ability, no willingness to do that, that is a very, very huge red flag that this man is using you. All right, let's keep this moving. And now the third thing a man will say when he's using you is that we don't need to talk about that. and notice I try to add a little tone to it so you can understand where I'm coming from. It's that very dismissive approach to whenever you want to discuss things. Again, men who are simply in your life to take are not trying to become too emotionally invested. All right. Don't want to have to address the deeper, harder issues. Now, again, it's hitting my spirit, so I have to mention it. Because I always have to give deeper clarity to some of these things, because I don't want you ladies to take a point and run with it to where you overlook some of the variations that happen in these situations. So what I'm getting at is this. I'm thinking of a client right now that's coming to mind who he did not want to talk about the tough issues. All right. And it wasn't because he did not love his girl. He had a struggle with confrontation. He had trauma that he had not healed from. And so his willingness to communicate about difficult things and handling conflict, it simply wasn't there. It wasn't there. He made efforts at times, but there would be moments of him like, we don't need to talk about this. All right. And so again, though that can be a legitimate issue, that doesn't mean you accept it. I only give you these things to give you a greater clarity and for you not to always look at this man as he's just a horrible man. If it's a situation where he does truly love you, he's not trying to use you, but he struggles with this specific issue. All right. So I want you to be aware of it, but that never means accept it as if it's okay. Because again, he still has to learn to communicate with you. And if he's unwilling to do that, you cannot have a healthy relationship with this individual. So it has to be addressed. But getting back to the guy who's simply using you, again, And this is why I'm going to say it many times. You have to look at the overall behaviors and actions and the words of a man to see if it's, because again, the user is consistent in his using. It's gonna come out in various ways, not just one way. And so when he is dismissive about your feelings, so it's not even just not wanting to talk about things. It's dismissive of your feelings. I mean, if you watch my previous videos, you know I make a huge point of men who dismiss your feelings. That's a problem. Because even if you stay with him, you're going to become resentful, frustrated, angry, and it's going to turn into a very toxic environment in that relationship. And then you will begin acting out in very toxic ways as well. You will have a very difficult time if you remain in that relationship, maintaining a level of healthy dialogue with this man. It just won't happen. So yes, if he's dismissive, if he never wants to talk about things, that's another sign of him using you. All right, so number 4 on the list of when he's using you, he'll say these things, is you got this. Now, let me, of course, explain. Not you got this as in I'm encouraging you, baby. You got this. You can handle it. You can conquer it. You're awesome. Not that you got this. More like, nah, you okay by yourself. I ain't gotta help you. You don't need me. Nah, you got your own money. I ain't gotta provide for you any kind of way. You got this in a sense of what's the word I'm looking for? I lost the word, but essentially giving him an out of helping you out. Putting it on you so that now he doesn't bear any responsibility to assist you in whatever is going on. All right. And so you've got to be mindful of this because again, users are trying to get more for less. All right. That's the premise of the user. I'm not trying to do too much work here. You know what I'm saying? I'm just trying to get the benefits. And yes, a user may do a little something here and a little something there, but what you're going to see more consistently is, nah, they will watch you carry the boulder on your back and be like, you all right, just keep walking. Like, they don't care. You can sit down. One thing that's coming to me right now, like I've seen or I've heard of or seen situations where the woman's calling the man and you're emotionally expressing yourself and your frustration and all that you're dealing with. And this is a perfect opportunity for the man who, if he loved you, would be like, all right, baby, how can I help you? Or let me handle this for you. And this dude just listens and like, okay, yeah, all right, cool. Talk to you tomorrow. And that's it. Again, forgive me for the laughter, but you know what I'm saying? It's an issue. It's an issue. And so when he is unwilling to, let me put it like this. Men who are genuinely in love with their woman, they desire to be that woman's Superman, essentially. They desire to be that man you can count on, you can rely on, that is resourceful for you, you know, and steps in and shows you how good he is to you and how much you mean to him. And so when a guy doesn't take any opportunity to do that, when there's a clear chance to do that, that's a sign of that man using you. All right. So another thing men say, or not men who are using you say, all right. And this is not an exact wording. All right. It's just the premise of it. Is essentially, it's always about me. It's always about him and not the we. It's always about me, not we. And so when a man is serious about you, we always talk about this. He includes you in his future plans. He's considering you in the things that he has coming up and what he wants to do and what he wants to achieve because he sees you as someone he's trying to share a life with. However, the user, again, he's only here for a good time, not a long time, all right? And he's not viewing you as someone that's going to be around possibly months, years later. Hell, he don't know if you're going to be around next week. He's just trying to get what he can get in the meantime. And so when you start to notice that he always just makes it about him, when he talks like that, that's a problem. But let's go even deeper. It's not even just talking about the future. It's just the way he views even current situations. And he doesn't view it in a way that considers your feelings. All right. It's always about him. Now, let me, again, I'm always throwing these curveballs with these, rare situations, we'll say. But I remember another client of mine, he was married. All right. And I had to tell him, like, listen, man, you're not compassionate with your wife. He's like, what the hell's compassionate? What you mean by compassionate? Like, he did not understand having to be compassionate. And I had to explain to him, like, listen, you got to consider her feelings. You got to be a little more sensitive to how she's feeling in the moment. I'm just breaking the whole thing down for him. But it was very foreign to him. He was a lot more rigid. All right. But it is something. So let me say this. When I brought it to his attention, because he was serious about trying to make things work with his wife, he did attempt to work on it. All right. But I'm simply bringing him up to say that some men have not been taught how to be understanding, how to be compassionate, how to be more attentive to a woman in a way that, again, it can come off the wrong way with how serious he is about you. And that's why, and we're going to talk about it more later, that's why addressing things is always important, because sometimes these disconnects, these red flags, whatever we want to call them, are due to misunderstandings, not an unwillingness to embrace what you would need. Anyways, getting back to it, for the most part, and again, this is why we look at the totality of the relationship. When he is consistent in all his other using ways, you will start to see that, yes, he's also consistent with, it's always about me, what I care about, what I want to do, not how you feel. It's always about how I feel. And that's a problem. And that's the whole me talk is another thing users are going to say or do. All right. So before I move on to number 6, real quick, if you want to receive the best piece of relationship advice I've ever received, join my email list today and I'll send it right to you. Click the link in the description or in the comment section. You're going to love it. Go ahead, sign up. It's free. So check it out. But let's continue with this video. So now the 6th thing the user will say, and of course, always allow me to explain this before you react, okay? That's none of your damn business. I'm not saying that to you. That's what he will say, all right? And so, listen, again, users, minimal effort, minimal investment, all right? Minimal sacrifice, if any at all, or typically there will be none. And so the whole that's none of your business mentality and talk is essentially a matter of not wanting to include you into his life. I think most would agree, if not all, that when a man loves you, when he's serious about you, all these things, he wants you to know what's going on. He wants you to be included. He wants to hear your opinion, all these things. And so when he's constantly keeping you separate, shutting it down, putting walls up and boundaries with you, learning more about him, knowing his dreams, all these different things, or again, just what's going on with him. And even like, let's say he talked to a friend and you ask, hey, what was that all about? To me, the man who loves you doesn't jump to, that's none of your business. Like, it's just, he has no, hell, I would argue that when men are really into women, they sometimes have a problem with too much pillow talk and releasing too much information, because like you're their partner in crime. They tell you everything to a certain extent. But again, there is a caveat, okay? And what you have to pay attention to is this. I've seen scenarios where the man starts off being willing to open up to the woman and tell her his business and what's going on. But the woman in that moment mishandles the information, all right? Maybe she approaches it from too negative a position. Maybe she gets disrespectful in the conversation. Maybe she crushes his dreams, makes him feel stupid, emasculates him, whatever. And at that point, man shuts down, and now he no longer wants to tell you anything. Now, again, I don't think the words that's none of your business is going to really come out of his mouth if he's the guy who simply has been hurt by previous interactions or previous attempts to open up with you. But that man who has been hurt will start to separate things a lot more. All right. So you have to always keep that in consideration. But what you'll notice, the key difference between the user and the man who's just hurt, traumatized, whatever, is that the man who eventually gets hurt, he at one point was being open. He at one point was including you. The user was keeping you shut out from the beginning. All right. And that's how you'll tell the difference between those two individuals. But that's definitely something else to look out for. All right. So now the seventh thing he'll say when he's using you, and I got a couple extra quote unquote bonuses or things to talk about after this one, is he will tell you no. Now hold on, because I know some of y'all are saying, what do you mean he's not allowed to say no? Let me clarify. He will constantly tell you no, all right? He will constantly decline giving you what you desire, all right? And it's not just always telling you no, it's always excuses for it. Because again, I have to repeat, users want minimal effort. Minimal effort. And so when you need him to do things, it's one thing that, remember I said earlier, the whole you got this, he's not even going to make an effort to try to do for you. But some will take it to the level of declining every attempt by you to ask him. Now, some of y'all, and here, I have to say this, some of you get too comfortable with not asking the man you're dealing with for anything. All right? It's not that I want you to be some damsel in distress. It's not that you are not capable of doing things for yourself, and I don't want you to use that as a test to him, because I'm not about playing games and manipulating in that way. But if he can't do for you, what the hell is he doing in your life? I'm sorry. Like, I hope it doesn't come off the wrong way, but you should be able to ask him to whether it be do you this favor or help you out here, whatever. Again, it doesn't mean overburden him. It doesn't mean it has to be this a constant thing. But you should be able to feel comfortable and safe going to the man you are dating or in a relationship with for him to help you out in certain scenarios. All right. But a lot of ladies, a lot of you women have become too comfortable or too fearful of asking the man for anything. And in doing this, you are not able to expose, even though we're not trying to test them. Because again, we're not trying to do this blatantly to expose it, but you have to allow yourself to do it in the natural flow of the relationship. And without that, you don't get to see what he's really about. And so to get to the point that I was making, the guy who's a user, if you do allow yourself to ask, it's always a no or always an excuse. Nah, I can't, I gotta blah, 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 or it's this or it's that, or, whatever the case may be. He never finds a way to be helpful to you. He never finds a way to be at your convenience. He never finds a way to take burdens off of your back. That's a problem. And it should not be accepted, plain and simple. Again, we're in a relationship, we should be able to do for each other, pour into each other, be there for each other. And if we can't do that, we're defeating one of the purposes of being in a relationship. All right. So like I said, got some extra things we need to discuss in this. Now, again, you've heard me say it before, but maybe this is the first time you're watching one of my videos. I have to always stress, just because you see these signs or he says these words or variations of them, it doesn't mean jump straight to, oh, he's a user. Stefan said he's using me. I'm done. All right. No, address it and address it in a calm, loving manner. And I know some of you are like, oh, hell no, I'm not, there's no need to address it. I'm out. No, you can't do that, or you shouldn't do that. That's not in your best interest. One, you have to learn how to properly address things, because again, even the man who is right for you, let's just say this guy is a user. When you finally meet the man who's best for you, he's still a human being. He ain't perfect. He's going to have mistakes. He may do things that come across as red flags. If you don't learn how to address things properly, you're going to hurt yourself with the guy that you should be working it out with. All right. And anyone, because not just romantic relationships, with friends, family, sometimes these things can all be resolved by just having healthy communication. So address it. But again, as I said, in a calm, loving manner. One of the mistakes that people make, and I say this with love, one of the mistakes a lot of women make, okay, is not being mindful of your attitude or energy when you're addressing something. You may be speaking calmly, right? You may be using words properly, but your attitude, your energy is attacking them. And that still can cause someone to be defensive. That's why it's very important that you calm yourself. If you got to take a few deep breaths, count from 10 back down, whatever you got to do to calm yourself before you get into this conversation and address things, do it. Because you want to lay the groundwork for having the best chance of either resolving it or coming to a conclusion, which, yes, may lead to he just ain't the one, he's a user, keep it moving. All right, so now the next thing I have to mention is this. Yes, I give you ladies all these signs and tips and things to look out for, right? But none of this should trump your intuition, all right? I am a huge believer, supporter, and encourager of intuition. And I think that if more women would embrace their intuition, they could save themselves from the headaches of relationships, the headaches of things that life in general throws at you, okay? And unfortunately, a lot of women, more specifically when it comes to dating and relationships and men, tend to rationalize past their intuition, overlook what is essentially slapping them in the face, but they don't want to accept it. All right. You know, many women, even women who have been divorced, when you get down, at least when I've spoken to them, have been able to admit to me that they saw the issue. They saw the red flags. Their intuition was telling them this isn't the guy, but they found reasons to push past that. And I don't want you to do that. And the reality is that the longer you drag things on, so essentially you might meet this guy, and let's just say within the first week, your intuition, not just what you're analyzing. And I'm going to say something to that in a second. Not just what you're analyzing because you're using all these signs and stuff. No, your intuition is like, nah, something's not right here. He might be presenting a perfect man at that time. But your intuition, not your fear. Fear is through analyzation and logic. Intuition is just what's in you, your spirit. If that's telling you go, and you're like, but nah, he's such a nice guy. I like him. I'm not ready. Let me just give it a little more time, right? Then what happens is that week turns into months, turns into years, and now you have a greater struggle to let go. Even though the entire time your intuition was like, this isn't right. This isn't it. And so the sooner you can embrace it, the better. And you have to be mindful of that. And of course, I have to say it, in addition to intuition, going to God. You know, again, I give you all this information, but I don't want you to listen to me just because it sounds good or because I'm Stefan, the relationship coach, and I've been doing this for years. I want you to, for those of you who are believers, to let God have the final say so. You know, I am giving you things to consider and be mindful of, but ultimately, again, what I can tell you, I've seen a lot of life happen for a lot of people. And again, things aren't always cut and dry as some would like to believe. It's not always so black and white. And so you've got to go deeper. And I believe that deeper is the intuition, is the spirit, as well as properly addressing things. That's how we go deeper rather than letting ourselves be guided by what we see on the surface. All right. So be mindful of that. Trust your intuition. And now one more thing, maybe one more. Either way, the other thing I have to mention, and it kind of piggybacks off of what we just talked about with the intuition, is do not be afraid to let go. All right. The reality is that if we are getting used, it's because we are letting that person use us. All right. I have to say it again. If we are getting used, it's because we are letting that person use us. Yes, we may not be able to do anything about the initial using, so to speak. So it's like, all right, maybe in that first week, that first month, we didn't catch on to the consistent behavior yet. We didn't trust our intuition, whatever the case may be. But once we became aware that this person just takes, and not giving, not pouring into us what we need, and we continue to have a relationship with them, we are letting ourselves be used. And we have to take responsibility in that. And understand that at the deeper root of why we are allowing them to use us is because we are afraid to let them go. And you have to make sure you conquer that fear and not be held hostage by not just the fear of letting them go, because the fear of letting them go stems from, well, maybe you're afraid to be alone. Maybe you're afraid to start over. Maybe you're afraid to accept that this person is a user when you wanted to believe that they actually genuinely cared. Maybe you don't want to prove the people right who said he was bad for you from the beginning. There's a host of reasons why people become fearful and struggle to let go, but we can never allow fear to guide us. We have to walk in faith, not fear. And we have to address the deeper issues that play into that. So it goes even deeper because our struggle to even be confident in letting someone go tends to stem from things we have not healed from in the past. All right. And it could be abandonment issues that cause us to struggle. It could be how our relationships with our parents shape our struggles with our romantic relationships. There's so many things to consider. And that's why it's so important that if you find yourself in a position with a user, because we can sit here and say, oh, I would never let this happen. And then never happens. All right. And sometimes it's that shame of how did I even allow myself to get here that now keeps us there. Because again, we don't want to accept what's going on. But if you find yourself in that scenario, heal from not just past relationships, but from everything that you've been through. Because healing will help you break free from it. Healing will help you not find yourself ending up in it. Healing will clear your vision to where you can see these things faster. Healing will allow you to embrace your intuition more. Healing will allow you to connect spiritually to God more. Healing is the key to your happiness, your success, and everything you deserve. So be willing to go on that journey and do what's necessary. I wasn't planning on plugging it, but I don't want to leave you with no possible resources. If you need help with healing, get your copy of Love After Heartbreak. I'll also add that link in the comment section in the description, or go to loveafterheartbreak.com. And even if you don't get the book, go to a coach, go to a therapist, go to anyone who's good, who can help you with this journey, because it will set you up for success. Hey, thank you for watching this video. Be sure to check this one out right here, and I'll see you there. So I always say, the same red flags you ignore in the beginning are the same red flags that will end your relationship. But the reality is sometimes the red flags don't look completely red. Like